Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday. It is our final day of the week, and we have a little bit in store for you today. I do. The history and ghost stories of the Statue of Liberty. So this is a bit of a hodgepodge because, it, believe it or not, it was hard to find ghost stories for the Statue of Liberty. And I have to tell you, so I decided to use Chat GPT for this, and I used a little bit of Wikipedia for the history part. But, because you know me, I love scouring the internet, I love doing research, I love history. But I had to use Chat GPT because I couldn't find a lot of stories. And then, it kept sending me to YouTube where they had these kind of BS, tellings of stories. And it's like, we couldn't tell. It's like older sibling and I were watching. It's like, what? So, but I can also tell you that Chat GPT is definitely a skeptic. So, whatever. But anyways, the Statue of Liberty. So, I do have notes. I wrote all this down so I get it right. However, I might be bouncing. So, yeah, let's just do this. So the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France. It was designed by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi. And its metal framework was built by none other than Gustave Eiffel, of the Eiffel Tower fame. So, and remember, not a lot of people were very receptive of the Eiffel Tower at first either. So, good morning, older sibling, and I'm assuming Muddy. I know. So, anyways, yeah, but she was, so Edouard de Leboullier, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I apologize to him if I'm butchering his name. Yeah, I know, all this time taking French and I still can't get shit right. But anyways, he was an abolitionist, a French abolitionist. So, he kind of came up with an idea, and it was just an idea, but it inspired the sculptor Bartholdi. And he thought, ooh, that's a good idea, because, it was just the end of the Civil War, and, in the next 11 years was going to be America's centennial of independence. And he wanted to create, he thought, oh, wow, yay, they finally abolished slavery, which is why, even though it's hard to see, the Statue of Liberty is standing on a broken chain and shackle. All right, that was supposed to be about abolishing slavery. And, even though it didn't, unfortunately, abolish racism or prejudice, I know, that's a whole other egg to open on a different day. So anyways, so plans started to create this statue, this kind of like this gift from France to celebrate the friendship between both countries. And so, they got to work. Now I'm not sure which one it is because I couldn't really find anything definitive, and I'm sure there is something definitive if I look a little harder, but I admit the last 2 days have just been kind of in a haze, so I haven't really dove in like I normally would. But apparently the face is either after Bartholdi's wife or his mother. So I don't know. I will look it up. I'm sure that, if I Google it, who is the face, it'll tell me. And I didn't think about that till right now. So anyways, I suppose we could do it live. So let's see. Who inspired the face of Lady Liberty? Lady Liberty also has some siblings around the world. Just ones that were models while they were building the big one. And also I think in 49 and 50, the Boy Scouts of America planted a bunch around the United States. And I found out in El Monte, which is about 20 miles from where I live, they actually still have theirs. So a lot of them have gone lost over time. Lost. I know. In fact, I love how the internet said lost, which means someone probably took it and it's in their backyard or in their house looking cute. So anyways, or it's, lost in some city storage, just being totally disrespected. Oh, it was his mother, Augusta Charlotte Bartholdi. So, Many believe that's who was the inspiration for the face. So, okay, there you go. This aligns with Bartholdi's lifelong admiration of her strength and dignity. So that makes sense. And at first she was intended to be a lighthouse, but the torch wasn't bright enough and she didn't really work. So they thought, well, let's just still build the statue. So France built the statue, but America had to come up with a pedestal. And you've seen, if you've been to the Statue of Liberty or you've seen the Statue of Liberty, you will know that that pedestal is basically a building. All right. So they had to fundraise all this stuff in the 1800s to get this pedestal built. So, I believe the island used to be called Bedloe's Island. I'm not positive, but I believe, until, it became obviously known as Liberty Island. And of course, she has become this grand symbol of welcoming in, people, either welcoming back her own people or welcoming in new people, whether they're visiting or trying to stay. And, there's nothing wrong with that. That was the whole point of Ellis Island. Ellis Island was to get people through. You pass Statue of Liberty, you get to Ellis Island, you go through, and you get processed. And, it's like, welcome to America. But you have to go through quarantine first because, they don't want a plague. All right. So that was understandable as well. So, I don't know if everyone had to go through quarantine, but there were quite a few, unfortunately, that poor lost souls that did not make it out of quarantine. They just had the inspiration of Lady Liberty as they came into the harbor and then unfortunately did not make it off that island alive. So, anyways, even though it was a gift for the centennial in 1876, it was actually dedicated on October 28th, 1886. Now, that means that this year, the Statue of Liberty is 140 years old. I know. Well, dedicated wise, 140 years old. 150 if you count when it was given to us. So, that's exciting because in that amount of time, there's plenty of time to come up with ghost stories. So let's dive into that. So there, you got your quick Cliff Note version of the Statue of Liberty. And by the way, she did come in pieces. So they had to, he created a model, which I believe sits in Luxembourg or either Belgium or Luxembourg. God, I had all this in my brain and then it just fell out. So anyways, one of the statues does sit into, like one of the design ones that he was using to sculpt her, because obviously she's huge. And before I start, okay, I finally saw the Statue of Liberty in 2010. Okay, and I'd never been to New York, and the siblings and I, Sissy Joe and older sibling Laura, and I were taking a cruise. We were doing a New England cruise. And it was kind of a profound moment because we were only 9 years out of 9/11. And, there was a lot happening on the boat. In fact, older sibling and I were talking about this the other night and we were laughing because, in order for the cruise ship to get below the, I think it was the Maranzano Bridge, if I'm butchering that, I apologize, New York. But, they had to fill the bilge, with water to sink it just a little bit. So I have one sibling over here looking at the Freedom Tower going up and in tears because, she'd been to the World Trade Center several times. She used to finish her New York trips at the, Windows on the World. When she would take people to New York, like her friends or whatever, they would stop in at Windows on the World. And so she was having a moment because she was grieving. And of course, then over behind me, I have the other one panicking like, oh my God, the boat's going to sink. And so there was a lot happening. But in those moments, I remember just kind of hearing people starting to sing God Bless America. And then, and I thought that was beautiful because I didn't realize when I looked to the left, it's because we were passing the Statue of Liberty. And boy, when you lay your eyes on her for the very first time, when you're close enough, okay, not from the harbor, not from, from the land, but when you're literally passing her and you see how glorious she is, you just kind of you have this awe moment of wow, imagine what it was like for the people 100 years ago coming in, leaving countries that no longer offered them anything or basically kicked them out, and it was sorry, it's George. And so, yeah, it was just amazing. And then of course, the other two, I had to I'm not a hero. I feel like I should have been that day. I should have been carried on their shoulders, all right? Because I had to stop one from panicking and I had to console the other one. And even older sibling was like, well, I'm sure glad I didn't know that because I probably would have laughed at her too. I didn't really laugh at Sissy Joe. I felt bad for her because she was legit panicking. And so then when I know Georgie does have something to say, and so then when we finally got her convinced the boat wasn't going to sink, because they do this all the time, she was panicked that the tower was going to hit the bridge because it came within inches of the bridge. And then, like, well, what if it falls and it falls on us? And it's like, well, then move. But anyways, it was for those brief moments, it was a very profound and beautiful moment to see Lady Liberty up there and to be surrounded with, like, a little bit of bittersweet, right? So bittersweet and paranoia. But yeah, and it was funny because, I'll admit, I was like, okay, I can swim. So if I need to swim, can I swim back to shore if the boat does sink? Because she started getting her paranoia in me. But anyways, you have to wonder, though, with all the people that have crossed through this island, how many left stories behind? Now, older sibling and I were watching a video yesterday, and they had a field trip of kids who said they were standing near the water, and, like not near the water, obviously, but, standing closer to the water's edge on Liberty Island near the Statue of Liberty and saying, we can hear voices. Now, a lot of people just said, oh, it's probably them just hearing things, or they're probably hearing people in the distance. But they're like, no, it's not people. We're hearing voices coming from over there. Now, I was telling sibling, I said, if it's one kid, it could just be either they're making it up to scare someone else, because that's what kids do. Or, maybe they're just hearing it, like, oh, maybe, or they've gotten so worked up about me. Maybe their friends scared them. Now they're like, I said, when 2 kids hear it, maybe it's a suggestion. But when 3 kids hear it, that's a thing. Okay, that's a thing. And, I have my own theories, and there's theories about ghosts and everything. There's intelligent hauntings where they respond and talk to you, well, communicate with you in whatever way you're choosing to communicate. And then there are residual hauntings, which is just kind of like a heavily impacted energy source that just kind of keeps a moment alive. And I think, especially when you're kids are more pure, right? It's not because they're pure that they can hear things or see things. Wow, George. Okay, George. What you doing, boo? That's a Capricorn. I know. Come here. Sorry. You never know what you're going to get with a live. Like I said, a little bit of something, whole lot of everything. But, anyway. Yeah, I know. Anyway. So anyways. Kids are a little bit more pure, all right? And by that I mean they haven't had the world telling them this doesn't exist, don't believe in that, don't do this, don't do that. I like when parents develop their children's gifts, if, I wouldn't say force them into it, but if they have it, just walk them through it so they're not so afraid. Because I had gifts when I was a kid. And my mom was just like, that's the devil's work, being a Catholic, and it's just kind of like, and the Catholic Church has kind of changed its mind on a lot of these things, but that's how my mom grew up. So she's kind of like, and so of course, with all the horror movies I grew up with, it's like, oh my God. So I kind of shut them off for a very long time. And, so yeah, that being said, I don't doubt some of these things. Now, I'm in parentheses, I wrote down what ChatGPT said because it was so skeptical or so non-believing. I was just like, whatever, middle finger to you, ChatGPT, on this one. So anyways, let's dive in. But there's more to Lady Liberty. Many have been welcomed by and passed under her torch as they sought new beginnings. But is there more? Does Liberty Island hold space for the supernatural? You decide. Captain Kidd's adventure. So I'm going to get into it here, and then I'm going to get into it later, where they have a little bit more. But apparently, it is rumored that Captain Kidd buried his treasure on Bedloe Island, and then lived in a house on Pearl Street where he could keep an eyeball on his island, or on his treasure. Now, they said that, now here it says 2 soldiers decided they would test this legend, and, they snuck out of their quarters, and then they started digging for where they thought the treasure was. But when they hit a box, the rest of the island was awakened by their screams. So one apparently was thrown into the water. I don't know. It was kind of a sketchy way they wrote this, so I'm not sure if he was thrown into the water. Another one was found unconscious, but one described him as black skins, horns, wings, and a barbed tail, whereas the other one said it was red with no wings. So who knows? But here's the thing. If there really was a treasure and they really did hit that box, why didn't someone dig it up? Or were they afraid because of that ghost? Because that's not the only story about Captain Kidd. So I got to look up Captain Kidd, though. But they also said he breathed sulfur into their face. Now, the other thing that I read and wrote down that I will get to later in this actually says something about sulfur. So either because, unfortunately for him, Captain Kidd's neck made best friends with a noose in London. So, he never came back to claim that treasure. So you have to wonder, in death, is he still protecting it? But if that is the case, it would be buried under, according to what I was reading, it would actually be under the pedestal of Lady Liberty. So if that also is the case, that might fuel some of the other things that happens. So here's a few more things. Missing visitors. Accounts of individuals who have gone missing while visiting the statue have been reported. Witnesses claim to have seen them disappear without a trace. Now, here's the thing. If you are gifted, or if you're just kind of like walking around and you're seeing somebody else as a tourist or looks like a tourist, or maybe they're dressed a little differently and be like, oh, look at them, maybe they're la 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 la, and then all of a sudden they disappear. It could just be that they weren't a visitor in your time. They may have been a visitor before your time, if you catch my drift, and they may have just disappeared. But who knows? Maybe there's some kind of weird vortex on the island. Heaven knows. Unexplained sounds. There are reports of strange noises coming from the statue, with some believed to be the ghostly presence of a person. Moving eyes. Eyes that seem to move in the darkness have been observed near the statue, adding to the mystique of its location. Now, here's the thing. Near the statue, when I remember looking out, there are bushes and trees, I think. I have never actually been to Liberty Island. I just passed it on a boat. It is on my bucket list. It is something I'd like to go back and do. Just kind of touch the pedestal and just be like, oh, because she does represent what I think is great about this country. Not that kind of great. All right. You know where I stand on all of that. Like I said, I'm surprised she hasn't gotten up and left. I know. I wouldn't blame her. I wouldn't blame her if it's like the Ghostbusters movie, right? Where she just gets off her pedestal and says, I'm out. So, because of all the stuff. But anyways, not talking about that. Sorry. Egg for a different day. Egg for a different day. No soapbox today. No soapbox today. But yeah, those could be animals, okay? Like last night, okay, so just as a side note, I tend to watch these spooky things for some odd reason before I go to bed. And they're usually just clips put together of other people's experiences that they've caught. And one person was like, some creepy thing was breaking through this door of the garage and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't know what it was. But if you really look closely, it looked like a dog, okay, but it had like the eyes, right? And the dog, and it's just kind of looking, but if you really, really focus in, and I don't mean like pareidolia wise, you can actually see something in the back kind of doing this, which looks like a tail. And of course, when you shine a light on an animal's face, on their eyes, their eyes are reflective so they can see better at night or in the dark. I'm not saying they have night vision. They might. I don't know. I'm not an animal. But they certainly reflect because they can see, they need that gift, right, of being able to kind of move about in the semi-darkness. So it's very possible that the eyes near the Statue of Liberty are animals. All right. I mean, I don't know if there's animals on the island, but why not? Okay. I mean, animals are very resourceful. They know how to do things. So, and you know me, I am not a skeptic. I am a true believer, but I'm also not going to just assume something is something because, it's there. I like to try to debunk things only because I think it adds to the credibility of the existence of supernatural things because, a lot of things can be explained away. So, but that's not to say that I don't believe because trust me, this house is like the freaking haunted mansion. There's always something happening in here. And it's really subtle most of the time. you know, but it happens enough. And I was talking to somebody else who said, well, I don't really have any experiences, but things like to disappear in my house. And that used to happen here too, until I told them, when you're done using it, put it back. And then it shows up, and generally somewhere else. But I will say they're helpful when something gets lost in here. And it's like, yeah, can you help me find it? And then it just magically appears like in the middle of the floor where you can see it or step on it. So take that as you will, kids. Mysterious forces. Some accounts suggest that unknown forces rise from the waters around the statue, creating a sense of unease. These stories contribute to the enduring fascination with the Statue of Liberty. Let's keep going. So number 1, this is from ChatGPT. Number 1, footsteps in the pedestal. Workers doing late night maintenance inside the pedestal sometimes report footsteps on metal stairs when no one else is inside. Echoes that sound like someone descending, a sense of being followed up the narrow staircases. And this is what ChatGPT says. These stories likely come from the acoustics of the iron framework, but they become a part of island lore. Seriously, I'm sorry, but the acoustics don't cause footsteps. Footsteps cause footsteps. Now, I'm not saying that the acoustics are bad, but if you were a worker there, you know, maybe the first night you work there, you step on something and it echoes and you're like, ooh. And then you realize, oh, that's me. But after a while, you start to figure out what is you and what is not you. And it's as simple as that. So, you know, I mean, and it's not making things up. It's not creating something that's not there. It is simply saying, okay, I took 3 steps and there were 6 after mine. You know, and you could say, oh, well, it doubled. But then all of a sudden there's one more step and you ain't moving. And you're like, So you never know. The torch room whispers. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 things here. Okay, we're going to talk about the Black Tom explosion. But first, the torch room has been closed to the public since 1916's Black Tom explosion. Night shift workers have claimed soft whispering near the sealed entrance, a feeling of pressure or presence, occasional metallic tapping from inside. Again, and this is ChatGPT. Again, no evidence, but the torch's room's isolation makes it a natural breeding ground for ghost stories. I put maybe it's the ghosts trying to break, maybe it's their break room. They're literally, they go to have a smoke, right? Let's go up to the torch. I mean, come on, makes sense. But anyways, I didn't realize the torch was closed. I thought it was open. Like, I legit thought it was open, but I guess it's her crown that's open. So anyways, that's for you to decide. I don't see why not. So anyways, the Black Tom explosion was an act of arson by German agents in World War I. So even though the United States was not in the war yet, they were sending ammunition and munitions to the Allies in Europe. And Germans found out about this, sent some undercover people, and they blew a lot of this up. Now, it caused about $20 million of damage back then. So in 1916, this is about, that's $20 million, which I believe I read said it was about $580 million in 2024. So that's a lot of damage. But it also damaged the Statue of Liberty, and it damaged a lot of stuff around it. It killed 7 people and injured hundreds more. So it was big, and it was very significant. And I actually read about that and saw a documentary about that, because it's like, how could you let this happen? But, sketchy, right? That might have also been how we got into the war. I thought we just joined it to be helpful, but they may have said, oh yeah, you literally tried to blow up the Statue of Liberty. We're coming for you. So anyways, I did not mean it to sound that bad. Yeah, it was July 30th, 1916. So 110 years ago. Kapoof. So anyways, number 3, the woman in white on the promenade. My dad says, why are they always white? Which begs the question of the brown lady in England, right? That's probably why everyone was fascinated with her, because she wasn't in the lady in white or the lady in gray. She was the brown lady. She was like, you know what? I'm going to toss it up a bit. I'm going to come in a sepia color, and we're going to rock this ghost party. All of them in their natural tones. I'd love to see like a pink ghost, or the lady in purple, the lady in turquoise, the lady in blue. It's like, come on, guys. Can't you make colors on the other side? Anyway, the woman in white on the promenade. A recurring legend among some staff: a woman in a long white dress has been seen walking the perimeter of the island. She vanishes when approached. Some say she's connected to immigrants who passed the statue but never made it to Ellis Island. And then, of course, ChatGPT. This one is pure folklore, but it's one of the most commonly repeated. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people have said that they think, when they say that they think she was connected to the immigrants, they think that she kind of protects their spirits. That's a different story I read. And she's kind of like their keeper until they pass on or find a way to pass on, because they never did. They were the ones I was talking about who unfortunately saw Lady Liberty but did not pass through Ellis Island because they died before they were able to leave the island. So, is it true? Who knows? I mean, you never know. If it's pure white, it could be like an angel, or maybe just someone appearing, or maybe it was an immigrant. Maybe it was an immigrant who passed away early on and said, okay, I'm going to take care of all these poor people passing away that don't realize they're dead. So, and I think a lot of times that's what ghosts are. They just don't realize they're dead. And once, you figure it out for them, it's like, okay, well, go through that door and then you can come back and haunt all you want. But, you need to pass on first so you stop being so angry and knocking the shit out of walls. So, it's like, that's what I expect my ghost to be like. Hello, are you paying attention? So anyways, in another side note, that's what I told my mom. When my mom was dying, she literally said to me, look, I know your beliefs, but do not tether me to this planet. I'm like, or no, she says, do not keep me here. I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean keep you here? Why would I keep you here? It's like, if I'm going to keep you here, I want to heal you and keep you here alive. And she's like, well, I know your beliefs and I don't want you to keep me here and not she's like, you have to let me go. It's so dramatic. You have to let me go. And I was, sorry, I forgot my brace. It just hurts. But I was like, okay, but I said, that's not how it works. I don't tie a spiritual ghost shackle around you and tether you here. I said, you're not a balloon. Okay. I said, no. I said, you walk through a door, and if you want to come back, you just walk back through the door. And I said, you can walk through that door and be here. You could walk through that door and be at my house, and she's like, oh, is that how it works? That was the best way I could explain it. So anyways, if you believe, you understand. If you don't know what to tell you. So anyways, number 4, we're back to Captain Kidd. That Captain Kidd. So anyways, no respect for the dead. I apologize. I probably should, because if this guy really blows sulfur at people, that's the last person I want haunting me. So anyways, this is the only Liberty Island ghost story that appears in printed sources, and it's a wild one. According to ghost lore sites, Captain Kidd's ghost is said to guard the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, not because he wants to, but because apparently his treasure is sitting under it, appear near the old fort walls, rise from the ground near supposed treasure sites, and emit sulfuric fumes and glide across soil. 2 19th century soldiers, which we talked about, allegedly fainted after seeing him while digging for treasure. This is legend, not history, but it is the most official ghost story tied to the island. So, look at that. Captain Kidd died in 1701, still lives on 325 years later. Wait, that is perseverance. The next one, the elevator operator's shadow. Some staff claim a shadow appears near the old internal elevator. It stands still then disappears when approached, often seen during power flickers or after-hours maintenance. This one is likely a combination of... this is ChatGPT again. This one is likely a combination of low light and the statue's complex internal structure. Yes, because low light and a complex internal structure makes somebody look like an elevator operator. Seriously, come on. It's like, it could just be a residual thing. It could just be this person loved their job so much that, they left an imprint of their energy behind from their lifetime. It doesn't mean the guy died there. It doesn't mean that he's stuck there. It just could be like a memory. When I was younger, so I started nerding out very young, but I super naturally nerded out in ninth grade. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was at a new school. So I spent my lunches the first half of the year in the library reading every supernatural book they had. And I started putting together theories like, well, what if, when you go in somewhere, you're not afraid, you're just kind of in believing mode, or you're in that, even if you're a skeptic, right? You're kind of in that, well, let's see what happens mode. What if you just kind of step into sort of a veil thing where you're being presented with somebody's life from way back, almost like a movie screen, but it might come across as ghostly because it's just really kind of a faint image as opposed to, something solid like you right in front of you. Like maybe it's just the energy was so, powerful, and like that was just left by a family that, you can see into the other side. And who knows, like it's just like a movie projector, like a ghostly movie projector playing for you. And the reason I thought about this was because somebody was writing about the Whaley House in San Diego, which we will go into. I do want to do something on San Diego ghost stories because there's quite a few down here, but or down there. I am home right now. But I remember reading about a dog, and the guy says, yeah, I was just like, I was looking at them just going about their daily business, and there was a dog, and the dog just kind of ran past me, but he didn't see me. It's like I didn't even exist. And I thought, well, what if they were just kind of, stuck between two, like here's now and here's then, and he's somewhere in the middle there. You never know. You never know. I mean, nobody's really been able to kind of put a finger on all of this. So anyways, when interviewed for, statue, their internal structure, whatever, ChatGPT. When interviewed formally, many rangers and maintenance staff say the statue is creepy at night, especially inside the iron skeleton. Sounds travel in strange ways, which that could be internal structuring, and the complex structure of the Statue of Liberty. The island feels alive because of wind, metal expansion, and water echoes. And, but no one reports hauntings in an official capacity. So the stories persist, but as folklore, not fact. What do you think? I mean, I can see all of this, like legit, I can see all of this. But, and I'm not saying you have to believe. I'm just saying that there is a lot of curiosity that goes with it, because it's like, it can't all be explained away. At least I don't think so. But also, if you're a park ranger, a lot of them are going to keep it to themselves, just like police officers, right? A lot of them will keep it to themselves because they don't want to be made fun of. And, it could be two guys have the same experience, but they don't want to be made fun of by anybody else, so they'll probably start making fun of one or the other. Like, oh, dude, what's wrong with you? Are you seeing things again? Oh, come on. Would you have too much to drink on the job? That is one of the nice things about all the ghosty shows out there, because there are a lot of people that are starting to admit that, they've had experiences. And I understand if you're a skeptic and you don't believe, a lot of times it's hard until you've had your own experiences. And being a person who has had my own experiences, it's just hard for me to turn back. I mean, I've had some in this house alone in my own bedroom, and it's wild, and I mean, there are just things that you can't explain. I mean, you can probably explain away a house settling and making creaking noises, or, this kind of noise, because a lot of times, houses will shift a little bit in the cold, right? In the heat and the cold. And here it's really hard because right now we're going through Santa Ana's. So it's been very warm during the day. I mean, it's going to be like 88 today, and it's freaking January. Okay. It's going to actually, I think it said it's going to be 85 today, but it's flipping January. Seriously. It's like Australia weather, okay? Because it's summer there, not here. But anyways, but it's been very cold at night. So, of course, we get the fog that comes in. But, I can see where the metal and the wood would expand, and, whatever the opposite of expanding is. Shrink. So I can understand that. But I remember one night I was laying in bed, and this wasn't the first time. And it was really, I'd really kind of come into my gifts, but I wasn't very comfortable with them yet, because it's kind of like, and I'm not somebody who I could say I could walk into a haunted house and say, oh, well, that's Bob. Bob died like 100 years ago, but he just loves it here. So he says, I'm not sure that I have that gift. I mean, I know I can talk to people I know because they reach out to me, but I'm not sure I could walk in and say, hey, that's Bob. You know, so some random guy. But yeah, but I mean, who knows, right? I'm not sure I've been brave enough to test that out. Not by myself, but I'm getting there. But I was laying in bed, and this is when I used to sleep with my door closed before, El Cato decided she has to be in the, no closed doors in this house. And so yeah, I remember, I was facing the wall because my room is not that big. So I do have a regular sized bed, but it's up against the wall. So there's only one way to get in. And I was facing the wall, and I just remember I would hear like this little tinkering behind me. And I have things on top of my dresser, but it was almost like something was picking it up and putting it down, picking it up and putting it down. And I don't know if it was trying to get my attention or what, but I was like, and it would kind of scare me. So then it would just be like, oh, please let me fall asleep. Please let me fall asleep. Please let me fall asleep. Because I don't want to turn over. I was always afraid, like, what's going to be standing there? Is somebody going to be standing there? So it's going to be like, I didn't have that, I didn't have that courage yet. I wasn't that comfortable. Sorry, I wasn't that comfortable yet. So anyways, one night, after about 3 weeks of this happening, I said, look, if you're going to keep making noise when I'm trying to fall asleep, clean my damn room. All right, just clean the damn room. And it stopped. It stopped forever. And I think all it was trying to do was say, hey, I'm here. I'm here. So, and then there was another night where I was just laying in bed and I heard whistling up at the corner, like right above my door in the corner. And I was kind of like, and it freaked me out because, I mean, there's something about whistling, but I'm not sure and I think it was meant to be a little bit more calming than just, hey, how's it going? But it's kind of like, please stop because you're freaking me out. And this was years ago. And I feel bad because I think I know who that was. I'm surrounded by a lot of ghost musicians. All right. Thank courtesy of older sibling. But I do think I know who that was. And I feel really bad because I would love, love, love to communicate this with this person because their energy is fabulous. Their persona in life was just beyond, just big and beyond. It was a big personality and a very kind person. So so those are a little bit of my stories. Those are just a few of my stories. Yeah, I have some from Hawaii. I don't think I have the pictures anymore, but, I had pictures that we took and my mom was there because I told my mom, because she's all, it was Hawaii, we already did Hawaii. So okay, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to share these. So one year back in the late 90s, mom and I, no, was it the late 90s? I don't know. One of the trips I was with my mom, we decided to go to Queen Emma's Palace. Now, Queen Emma's Palace, I believe, is on Poly Highway, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've been there, but it's a beautiful place. It's where Queen Emma lived with King Kamehameha III, I believe. In fact, Queen Victoria was their son's godmother, and she was on her way to see them. And England, obviously, you have to go down and around, right? So she was on their way to see them, and unfortunately, the son died before she could get there, and in his grief, the king died. So Queen Emma spent a lot of time at her summer palace, or so I call it the summer place. But anyways, I think it's either place or palace, but whatever, one letter. So I remember I was just kind of wandering and I heard somebody call my name, and it's like, there was one thing I learned: do not answer when something calls your name, ever. I mean, if they call out again, or it's your person, and you're like whoever you're with, and it's like, okay, but I knew my mom was nowhere near me, so I'm just kind of like, and I keep going. Do not answer. So anyways, but yeah, so I said, ooh, let's take a picture, and so I remember my mom took the camera, and I told her, I said, look, I get it. It's spring and it's warm, but I'm literally standing in a cold spot. And I didn't understand what cold spots were right then. I said, my mom's, well, maybe it's a breeze. And I said, no, it's not a breeze. I said, it's literally starting from the ground and going up my body. So she's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. So she took a picture, and when we looked at it, she took two. Okay. She took two pictures, and the first one had this weird mist right in front of me. And I told my mom, I said, ooh, I think that's a ghost. And she's like, I don't know. Cause she's like, don't do that. You're freaking me out. And so, and it's like, okay, well, fine. So, but I mean, we couldn't explain it because in the next picture, it wasn't there. And then when my mom came back over to me, she's like, yeah, it's a little cool here, but it was already dissipating. And so I thought, oh, well, someone was visiting me. Thank you, Queen Emma. But yeah, it was an odd looking mist, and it was kind of cool. So it was like, huh, okay. And I will finish it off with a funny story. So there is a, on along the Poly Highway, they have, I'm not sure if it's the royal burial grounds, but I know there are royals buried there, like King Kalakaua, Queen Liliuokalani, even I think Captain Cook might be buried there. I'm not sure. But I think it's been a long time. It's been over 20 years since I've been to this particular area. But there was a great ghost story when I was in that one week-long thing I told you guys about. When you're going into fifth grade, you get to go. If you're Hawaiian, you get to go to explorations camp. And they were telling us this man. There was a church where they used to bury they would just place the bodies. Like their caskets and whatnot, like on shelves in this church. It was kind of like a big mausoleum for the royals. And this man wanted to paint a picture. Now, and if you know anything about Hawaii, it's sort of a rainforesty kind of place. So, especially along the Poly Highway, there's a lot of big mountains. There's a mountain range, and the clouds tend to move in a lot. And it doesn't mean it's always going to rain, but a lot of times it does. I mean, they literally have rain when it's sunny out because it's blowing in from the mountains. Okay. So anyways, this gentleman was like, well, I want to paint this. And he was starting to get going. So he said, I'll just take a picture. I'll take a picture and then, I'll finish the painting off of the picture. So he takes a picture, he develops it. And there's a face in the top window. Now, mind you, it's a church. So it's the top window, like, towards the steeple, I don't know what that's called, towards the roof, the top of the roof, okay? And there's a window, and there's someone standing in the window. So the guy goes back to the graveyard, and he says to the caretaker, he's all, were you in the church that day? And he's like, no. He's all, nowhere near the church that day. I was in my house because it was starting to rain. And he's all, why? And they showed him the picture, and he's like, oh, and I can't remember for the life of me. I'm sorry, okay? Because this was about 40-something years ago. He says, oh, that may be, I think he said it may have been the old caretaker, but because they said people tend to spot him around from time to time. So, here comes the funny part. Mom and I decided we're going to go. It's like we're coming down from the palace, and it did start to rain that day too. It was kind of odd, but we were going through, and like King David Kalakaua, you used to be able to go into the mausoleum. I mean, there's a chain there, but you could look in, and see everybody, all the plaques and everything of all the family that was buried there, and so Mom and I did that, and my mother, this woman, like, if she was still alive for some of these practical jokers and prank things, and oh god, I forgot what that one show is that older sibling loved with Tracy, the comedian guy. Anyways, she would have definitely put me on one of these shows. Anyway, she's all, we decided we were walking around the church, and we were walking around the grounds, and it was sprinkling a little bit, but we didn't care. It's Hawaii, right? We knew it would go away eventually. And because I never got to go this in depth into this graveyard, because, when you're with a class, you don't really get to go through. And of course, when I go back every summer, my grandparents weren't tourists, so I didn't get to see a lot. It was mostly just kind of like, I'm in Hawaii. So I told my mom, let's go, so we go. And Scare Tactics. That's it. Scare Tactics with Tracy Morgan. I knew you'd come through, older sibling. Thank you. So Scare Tactics. My mother would totally put me on that show. Anyways, so we're going around, and unfortunately, some clown had broken one of the windows on the church. So my mom and I are standing there, like literally just standing there at the foot of the stairs. My mom's all, go look. And I'm all, you go look. And she's like, well, just go peek inside. She's like, put your camera in, take a picture. She's like, you're all into that stuff. And it's like, I don't want to do that. You go do that. And she's all, no, you go. So this time was completely unintentional, but I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, oh my God, I remember this story from when I was a kid. There's going to be a face staring right back at me when I look through this window, right? That's my brain hard at work. And so anyways, I walk up to the window and I get just in, I peek. My mom's like, do you see anything? It just scared the shit out of me. I jumped so high. And of course I turn around. She's laughing her ass off. And she's like, and it's half laughing, half nervous laughing. When my mom got nervous, she would laugh. So if you got hurt, she wasn't making fun of you. That was just her natural instinct, was to laugh. She just laughed. She's one of those people. And that, there is a name for that, but, I can't remember what it is, but she was like half laughing nervously and half laughing. She's like, I didn't mean to do that. I'm like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. You did that on purpose. She's like, no, I really didn't do that on purpose. And she's like, did you get the picture? I'm like, no, and I'm not going back up there. I said, you want a picture? You go up there. But yeah, I mean, I literally scared myself to the point that when she just asked me, do you see anything? It's like, I about had a heart attack. So anyways, what was interesting though about this place is that we had a digital camera. The battery wasn't that great. So it was, I think it was just at the point in its life where, this is the old days when digital cameras were new. And I think it was just at its point in life where, you had to carry fresh batteries with you. So, but I had just put fresh batteries in. And when I say it would die fast, it would die within like 2 days. This camera died when I was trying to take a picture of the church like the gentleman did when he was doing that painting. And I told him, I'm like, oh, and I said, did you bring the extra battery? She's like, no. And I forgot to. So it's kind of like, oh, that sucks. So we didn't, but the weird thing is later, without even thinking, we went to go have something to eat. I turned on the camera to look at the pictures, and lo and behold, it went back on. So I guess the caretaker was like, your mom disrupted, so no, you don't get any pictures. I'm gonna blame it on her. She's gone. So anyways, that's all I got for you. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Have a very wonderful and safe weekend. I will see you Monday, whatever day that is. I'll see you back here on Monday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. You can follow me across the social media board, but they all start at YouTube. So if you'd like, you can click and subscribe there. I'd greatly appreciate it. So you never miss one of my wild and crazy shows. And if you're new here, a lot of times I do talk about mental health stuff. I'm a huge mental health advocate, and I like to share my journey. I like to share my story to help other people move through theirs, and there are times when I just can't go through with a show because my brain is just revolting. But for the most part, I do try to be on. So, so I do hope to see you all back here. And to my girls that came on, for the live, thank you. And so have a wonderful, wonderful day. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you Monday.